This is The Drive with Mark Penatelli.
Stay tuned tonight. Major League Baseball, Washington Nationals. 9 o'clock. This West Coast thing. We're going to talk some basketball, though, as we welcome Michael Norwood in. How you doing, man? It's good to see you.
Good, man. Thanks for having me in. I got one quick question. You had the opening, and it's the Mark Penatelli show. And
we haven't. We
earlier on the day, it's the Dan Lebitard featuring Stu Gotts.
Yes.
When do we feature Sam Avalos?
Well, the new logos, if you've seen, we're in the process. Most of these nice reads that we've gotten from folks were before Sam came here.
Yes.
But as you can see on our graphics, that we're starting. Yes. Do you feel like you're the Stugotts? Because I feel like I get pretty Stugotts myself from time to time.
Yeah,
so.
I think we're both just kind of idiots at the end of the day.
Yes, good. A couple of Stugottses, but yes, we're the going forward. It's essentially the drive,
right?
And the two idiots that are fortunate enough to steer this thing into the ground every day.
Two idiots driving. That's the name of the show.
Yes. So I'm excited. Obviously, Celtics fan. To get back to the conference final, especially under the circumstances that there's no Kyrie Irving, that there's no, the two guys that they went out and got. The whole reason why they stripped the roster down and only 4 guys from last year's team were on this year's team weren't there. I mean, there were many that didn't think they were going to get past Milwaukee, and there certainly weren't many that believed, including myself, that they were going to get past the Philadelphia 76ers. Needless to say, in 5 games, get past the 76ers. So I'm obviously ecstatic. So let's go from the other end, from a Sixers standpoint. Do you take anything out of it? I mean, because at the same time, you were playing with as much house money as I was this year as a Sixers fan.
That's what I've been trying to tell myself. I guess I feel like for the last week I've been yelling about Brent Brown, and I think I've talked myself off the ledge a little bit. I think I'm calming down on this whole I'm ready to fire Brent Brown, because as I watched last night's game, I thought he did a good job. I thought he's done a good job of helping the team respond from sort of getting punched in the mouth early in this series.
Yeah.
And I look across the court and I see Brad Stevens, and I'm thinking, I'm so mad that Brad Stevens isn't my coach, like that I don't have that coach. And I realized, well, what am I going to get if I want Brent Brown fired? I think Brent Brown's a good coach, and if we fire Brent Brown, I'm not going to get Brad Stevens. So really my whole takeaway from this series is kind of like you said, still house money. Maybe they weren't supposed to be there quite yet so early, but I'm happy about it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think you're probably a year ahead of where you thought you were going to be. But it's hard not to get wrapped up to it as a fan and go, okay, we're better than them. And you're sitting there talking about the coaches, and there's, 32 NBA teams. If Boston is coached by 28 of the other NBA coaches, Philly probably wins the series. And that's kind of the way to look at it. And I think Brett Brown, he's new to the game too. And he did make adjustments. I thought he tried to pound it inside, which is what he should have done. Now, the good coach picks up on it mid-game, the game before, and says, okay, we got away from it at halftime. We're going to pound the ball in. I think he went back and looked at the film and go, why we jack up so many threes and ball stand around and watch guys play one-on-one. And so I think he figured it out, made good adjustments, but the great ones make in-game adjustments. And that's what separates, again, 28 NBA coaches take the Celtics. They may not beat Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee, they lost in 7 games. And they probably don't beat Philly. So I think it would be crazy to fire Brett Brown. I know he made decisions that were questionable. He got caught up in playing Simmons when Simmons was stinking up the joint. They were playing better with TJ, but somebody else made a great point going, look, we're not winning the title this year, so throw Simmons in there, and if he sinks, he'll learn from it and come back better. So he made some decisions, but you hit the nail on the head. Am I going to get a better option? And the guys like him. They play for him. I like the way they move the ball. you're fine. You're 1 year ahead of where you thought you probably should be, but you got a little too giddy because you rolled up a bad Miami team and thought, hey, we're going to the finals.
Right. So I guess just from the basketball perspective, though, what did you see? Because we had you in here last Thursday, and I think it was 1-0 at that point. Boston had won just one game at the time.
It was 2-0.
It was 2-0 last
2-0.
Thursday? Okay.
Yes.
So the thing we were talking about was, okay, Brad Stevens has clearly designed the perfect game plan to stop Ben Simmons, and they were allowing Joel Embiid to get down the low block. Did you see anything that made you think that Brent Brown actually made an adjustment to that, or was it just, hey, let's throw T.J. McConnell out there because he's a different player?
Well, no, I mean that's part of it. Is playing the new guy, and Philly was making too many just careless turnovers, and they were putting the ball in Redick's hands, some other guys saying go make plays, and that's not what they do. Mm-hmm. And putting TJ in, I mean that's a bold move because he sat down some bigger names, and I thought he did well. And again, throwing the ball inside, I thought they tried to do a little bit. I think they made enough adjustments that if you're a Philly fan, I think you're happy. You're very happy to run it back.
Yeah,
and you're going to lose Redick because he was a 1 year deal guy, and Fultz. For everybody's talked about, a lot of it was physical, that his muscle in his shoulder was messed up. So he's going to be better next year, and they're going to be a better team, and they'll find somebody. There'll be a new free agent. I don't think you bring back Bellinelli or some of those clowns.
You're going to get Kawhi. It's going to be great.
I wouldn't trust Kawhi. So would you trade Simmons for Kawhi?
Oh, no. I'll trade away everybody on the team except for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. You can have anybody. You can even have Fultz.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
bring me Kawhi, and then we'll fill in the pieces.
If you're Boston, would you trade Tatum for Kawhi?
Nope.
Would you trade
Tatum's
Brown?
Special, and I love him.
Would you
And,
trade?
yeah, I'm not getting rid of that guy. I mean,
Would you trade Brown for Kawhi?
No.
I don't think you do either.
I mean, one's 20 and one's 21.
And Kawhi, man, the stuff that came out this year, that's hard. Yeah. That's locker room stuff and chemistry. And
See, you didn't mention the guy that I think they would trade, and we had fun with this yesterday because we saw one of those
Kyrie
fake
Irving?
Facebook posts.
Hayward. Yeah.
Trade away Hayward. Trade away one of those picks because I think that is a combination of players that you can see really working. If you say, okay, take out Hayward, put in Kawhi, and then surround him with Brown. Maybe put Tatum at the 4. Have Horford be your 5. It's a small ball lineup, but Kyrie, Kawhi, Jaylen Brown, Tatum,
I thought you were going to say trade
Horford.
Kyrie.
Nah, I like Kyrie.
No way.
Yeah, don't trade Kyrie.
Rozier didn't earn it for you?
No.
Well, now here's the thing,
he's
about
playing
Hayward.
great. I'm excited.
Rozier's Isaiah Thomas.
Right.
Rozier is going to fill in because Boston's got to make a really hard decision on Marcus Smart because he's approaching that. And are you going to pay him $20 million? Probably not. I'm guessing he's going to be the stopgap when Marcus Smart takes
Here's
deal
the thing
somewhere
about
else.
that you've got to remember that Haywood makes them better. You take out Smart, who chucks up terrible threes at the worst time.
Yeah.
And now you've got Haywood shooting those shots when Tatum and Brown drive and they kick to Haywood, and he's the guy shooting it. You're going to be a lot better. So Haywood, I think he's going to fit in great to that system.
The thing that you're going to miss from Smart that a lot of guys don't. The defense,
Toughness.
the intensity, the fact that he's not scared, despite the fact he's smaller than a lot of the guys he'll go
last
body
night
to body
he was
with.
in everybody's jock. I mean, he was attacking J.J. Redick. He was attacking anybody that had the ball. He was just manhandling him. So if you're a Celtics fan, he's hard because he gives you that. He gives you toughness, and then he goes 1 for 8, and the one shot's the biggest shot of the game. But the other 7, you're ready to strangle him because they're terrible shots, and he shoots like 20-some% from 3. So he's a hard guy if you're a Celtics fan because he's a no, yes guy.
Yeah. I mean, literally the last series of the game where he misses another free throw, critical free throws with the seconds on the clock, and then comes up with the big play on the other end on defense. So, yeah.
Well, and we've talked about it.
I've
I've talked about it plenty of times about coaching, how I love guys that think they're the best player in the gym.
Yes.
And I want players like that. Now, some people may think, oh, they're headaches or whatever. I like that. Smart thinks he's the best player in Boston. It doesn't matter what Kyrie's doing or Haywood or whatever.
Right.
Smart thinks he's the most important, most clutch, best player in Boston, and that's I love that attitude. I mean, give Ben Simmons some of that dog fight, and Simmons would be unbelievable because I think Simmons has shrunk some in this series. Again, he's young, it's new, he'll get better, but give him some of Smart's attitude, and holy cow, Simmons! I mean, he's going to be great anyway. But he would be unguardable, unplayable.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got a lot of Boston stuff to say. I know we steered off of Marcus Smart there, but I really want to focus on the Sixers. And you brought up something that I think this series, as it went, Embiid and Simmons specifically, you started to see that anger. I mean, I know the Morris and Embiid going at each other. I mean, that was one thing. But Simmons started to be more determined. By the time we got to even that game last night, there was a determination that I had not seen.
There was an edge.
And you got to experience that. I think before you can start to harness that.
Right.
I think that this series was great for those young players in Philadelphia. And I think going forward, that's why you were saying I wouldn't trade I'd trade anybody on that team that wasn't named Simmons or Embiid because I saw that sort of fire and again with their physical gifts, when Simmons takes the ball to the hole, you can't stop that.
Well, and I think what happened is
that
they played Miami in the first round. Everything went well, and they won in 5 games or whatever. Yeah, they won in 5 because Dwayne Wade had the one good game.
That's right.
So they won in 5. So they kind of not coasted, but they went through it. The second round
and had a week off.
Right. The second round is when they really got punched in the mouth the first 2 games. Like, this is playoff basketball. Every possession matters. Simmons just completely shrunk. Was it game 2 that he had 1 point?
1 point. Mm-hmm.
So, and then get destroyed for 2 or 3 days in the media and everybody question you. That was their first real taste going, oh, okay, wow, this is – now I know what people are saying when they talk about playoff basketball as a different animal. And then you're right. They got a little tougher, a little more fight. They started to jaw back at the Celtics because the Celtics were punking them. They didn't respect them. They thought they were clowns. And so they fought back, and you're right. It makes them better. I think Gus said something. He said, I wish Philly would have got swept. And he says, the reason I wish they would have got swept is because it would make them very mad in the offseason. You're not good at all. You're so far away from being any good. And that fire is what drives people to become better players. He's like, I wish they got swept. And then you're embarrassed and you go in the gym.
Yeah. Is Philly Boston now the regular season games next season must-watch basketball every time they play?
I hope so.
Did this? I mean,
for the East.
Yeah.
And Cleveland's always going to be in there, but you also know in the regular season, LeBron's going to decide during warm-ups if that game matters or not. Because there's games, and they may lose by 20, and he'll coast to his 28 and 5, and then there'll be a statement game against Boston or Philly, and he'll go out and destroy them. And you can tell. And he's, I hate to say it because I don't want anybody coasting, he's earned the right to play the regular season like he wants because all he's judged about is rings. I mean, that's it. There's nothing. He's playing phenomenal these playoffs, and if they lose in the Eastern Finals and the Finals, people will just ignore it.
Yeah, like LeBron's just a different animal. If we're going to talk about what you were saying, Mark, about this being potentially must-see TV next year, anytime you team up these matchups, it's what we've been talking about. This is the future of the Eastern Conference. I think this playoffs clearly showed us Toronto isn't it, right? Toronto with the best season in Toronto Raptors history, and they still flame out the way they flamed out.
Somebody tweeted they could go 81-1, and I wouldn't trust them in the playoffs.
Right, and they're also in a position I don't think where they can necessarily blow everything up and rebuild because what's that going to do to that fan base? I'm not even sure if Casey's going to end up getting fired at this point.
You know what? I fire him.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
I tell you why. Because
Coach of the Year fired.
I don't care because here's the difference. And you're debating about your coach Brown. I at least saw some fight in Philly in game 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. They blew game 3, but They showed fight. They scrapped. They played better defense. They jawed at people. Toronto didn't show anything.
No.
They looked like after they lost game 1, they were done for the season. Old, they're in the team huddle. It's 1, 2, 3 Cancun. That's what they were doing in game 2. So
They must have heard my rant about the way they just threw it away. Just give it up now because it's over.
Oh, and
it's over.
you know what they need. They need toughness, right?
Yes.
So
Who
do they need?
They need Jerry Stackhouse.
They need Stack.
Now, It would be interesting if they fired who we're saying is going to be the National Basketball Coach of the Year, right?
Yeah, the coaches poll version
Dwayne
of
Casey.
the Coach of the Year.
We need to take a break. But when we come back, what is remarkable is not that Dwayne Casey's underwhelming performance in the playoffs after winning Coach of the Year. It is the fact that Brad Stevens, who we've all seen and admitted is a great coach, didn't get one single vote for Coach of the Year. Let's take a break. We'll come back and talk about it.